Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online build video with me, Sherman. Today we're taking a look at the Druid. It is a Stamina Warden healer build made for Murkmire. It's been adjusted to fit into the changes that have come through with Murkmire, and it's a little different. So let's get into it. Starting with the race, we are a Wood Elf. This is the probably better option for the build because of how we want the build to work. Now, you don't have to have the stats set up the way I do. I just did this because I wanted a higher magica resource pool, kind of to allow me to utilize some of the skills that I use a little bit more. So that's why that's there. The 32k stamina is really good for this build, and the 3200 weapon damage, which actually gets boosted a lot higher, is also really good. So we also end up with about a 19k resistance, depending on which route you decide to go with the morphs of certain skills. So as you can see, we have a 1391 stam recovery. It does get boosted up also. A lot of this stuff is very important for this build to work properly. So a lot of people are going to ask why I'm not using Heresine's this time. Heresine's a good set, but with the loss of crit in this new update, you need to make up that difference, and the only way you can do that is by using things like the Thief Mundus Stone. So I really needed that higher crit to make this build work effectively. We are running Dubious Cameron Throne for the food as usual to give us the max stam, max health, and stam recovery. There is another food that came out with Somerset that gives you max health recovery, stam, and stam recovery. That's really good if you're doing PvP, but we're not playing PvP with this build. But you can use it in PvP, and if you choose to, that's the food you want to use. So, all right, going on to the gear here. So the gear sets I've chosen for this build are different than what I normally run. It's still running Powerful Assault, but I changed the monster set and I changed the main set. So the monster set we're running now is Choke Thorns, and the reason we're using Choke Thorns is because it's a better heal than the Sentinels set, but Sentinels is still good. It's just this happens to fire off quite a bit more often with this build, and since you have a lack of heals, this kind of plays into that really well and gives you just one more extra heal. It's really good. The other set we're running is Hunting's Rage, and this is going to be the set that gives us our high crit, our high weapon damage, a little bit more stamina, and it plays well with this build. So, really good trade-off. Next set we're using is Powerful Assault. Powerful Assault gives you max health, stamina, and weapon damage. And then whenever you cast an Assault ability, you increase your weapon damage and spell damage up to 4 friendly targets within 10 meters by 164 for 15 seconds. This is why this build can work, is because you will be up close and personal with your allies, so having this give that extra out to your allies it helps. I'm not gonna lie, it helps a lot, and it really allows them to fortify their ability to do damage, so, and yours as well. But onto the traits, we are running 3 infused on the bigger pieces, and on the smaller pieces, divines, and this is going to give us the better pool of resources, better overall play experience with this build. That's why we went with tri-stats on the bigger pieces, so it gives us a little bit more, and it does allow our health to be bigger with this when using the Dubious Cameron Throne. So, and along with the 2 divines, or 4 divines, it helps boost our Mundus Stone a little bit. On the jewelry traits, we are running 3 robust with 3 weapon damage. We don't need a lot of recovery on this build because the Wood Elf has a 21% stam recovery. We're wearing medium armor, that's another 20%. And then we have another 14% from our champion points in stam recovery. So we actually have a 55% recovery overall. It's just a lot of recovery. Onto the weapons, we are using 2 infused weapons on the main bar, 1 with Crusher, 1 with Weakening. You can use a physical damage or a Stamina Absorb here, which does physical damage now and gives you stamina back. You can use that on the front bar if you want. On the back bar, I would suggest sticking to the weapon damage enchant. This boosts our heals by a lot, so we want to boost those heals up, and this is going to allow us to do that. and that is also an infused bow. So powerful assault on the weapons, the jewelry, and then Hunting's Rage on the 5-piece, and then the monster set you're going to want light and medium, or light and heavy, and choke thorns. Alright, so now that we're done with the gear, food-wise, I will suggest Dubious Cameron Throne again, because it works best in PvE and PvP. The other one with the health recovery actually adds a little bit more to the character and allows you a little bit better survivability. When it comes to potions, in PvE, you can use either the Tri-Stat or the Gold Coast, because you already get Major Brutality and Weapon Crit increase from buffs. You really don't need this kind of a potion. The Stam return is really good, though, on stamina potions, so any Stam potion will work, but if you want to get that uptime of crit and weapon damage, it's better to go with this. And Tri-Stat's really good because it gives you all 3 resources, and since you will burn through them, not a lot, but enough, this might actually play better, because even the health can help you out. Alrighty. So moving on now to the skills. Make sure you get all your class passives. It's very important to make sure you unlock all of them. So when you do your character as you're leveling, make sure you unlock your class passives all the way to the max level. I will show you some skills you can change out and the reasons why when we get to the skill bars. Make sure you get your dual wield passives and your bow passives, important. When it comes to armor, make sure you get the light top 3, medium, you want all of them, and then on heavy armor, you just want the top 3. World skills, soul magic, you don't really need it, but it helps. And if you're playing a werewolf with this build, that's fine. If you're playing a vampire, it's fine. It doesn't matter. Just be careful of the fire damage on the vampire. On the werewolf, just make sure you're not in werewolf form when you're playing your healer side. Guild side, Fighters Guild, it's good to get the Fighters Guild unlocked, because there is going to be times where you might want to use the Fighters Guild Dawnbreaker. It's not something that I would suggest using all the time. When you're solo playing, it's really good to use, and when you're playing in PvP, Dawnbreaker is going to be really good to use. So, Mage's Guild, you only need Persuasive Will, honestly, the passive. And on Undaunted, or Psijic Order, I would suggest unlocking them all, because you never know. Like, a lot of these skills are good for it. Like, the Crushing Weapon can be good, Time Stop can be good in PvP, and then also Mend Wounds can be good in PvE or PvP. When it comes to Undaunted, get the Undaunted passives, and I will be explaining some of these skills, why they're unlocked. So, Assault, don't need any passives, and neither on the support side. When it comes to the Wood Elf, make sure you get all the passives, and then of course on Alchemy, get the medicinal use and provisioning, Gourmand, and Connoisseur. This is going to really help you out, because you want your food to last a long time, and you want your potions to work as long as possible. So now, moving on to the skills. Now, I don't have this set up how I normally run it for the healer setup, so let me go ahead and make sure I got this all done, because I made the video once before and it failed when I uploaded it. There was a lot of bugs with it for some reason, so I had to redo it. But starting with the skills on the main bar, Twin Slashes. It's a great morph, especially with the changes to enchants. When you apply Twin Slashes now, I'm going to go ahead and run in here. Actually, I'll just run over here. I'll show you guys on the target skeleton why it's good to have this on this build, and why it's also good for tanks now to possibly use dual wield, because then you can use Twin Slashes or you can use Blade Cloak. So Twin Slashes is going to give you both procs, and as you saw when I did it, it put both procs on there, and as long as this ticks, it'll also reapply the debuffs, the Crusher and the Weakening enchant. So this is a good way to keep those up all the time. Alright, so moving on. That's why we have this here. And this one also gives you a small heal, which is really good for you for survivability. The next ability we have on our bar is Subterranean Assault. This is a good way to apply Major Fracture for your group, and it does really good damage. So it's a really good ability. Now, if you need Major Breach, you can take the Magicamorph for this, but the damage will be super low, so it's not really worth it. Next up, we have Shimmering Shield. Now this I like to use in PvP. because Shimmering Shield gives you 3 ultimate whenever you block projectiles. In PvE, it's not as effective. In PvE, what's better is honestly Deadly Cloak. Deadly Cloak gives you AoE damage mitigation of 25%, but it also does decent damage that it stacks, and it helps keep your enchants applied. And it doesn't matter if you switch to the back bar and you have Deadly Cloak going. So we're going to let it proc. As you saw there, it did damage, it applied those things. I can switch to the back bar and it'll reapply it. So it doesn't matter which bar I'm on. It will always keep reapplying the enchants from the front bar, which is really, really good now. I'm glad they did that change where procs on enchants apply on both bars. So that's going to be really helpful to players in this new update. Next up, we have Resolving Vigor. This is going to be one of your main tick heals you're going to be using. It is your main tick heal that you're going to be using. You're going to be firing this off quite a bit to keep it applied to your group. It's also going to fire off your Powerful Assault and keep that applied to your group. So you want to make sure you have this up every 5 seconds, reapplying that Powerful Assault, because then you keep the heal and the Powerful Assault going. The next thing you're going to want to be using is this, Soothing Spores. This is going to be your main heal. And this works when you're better if you're within 8 meters of your allies. So this is a close-up heal. So Vigor and this, you're going to want to be up close to your allies like this to heal them. So that way you can keep that heal going. And as you saw, Chokethorn just popped, and it heals for a lot. It's healing for 4k, a second for 4 seconds. It's a lot of healing. So really good monster set. The next ability we have on our bar is the Enchanted Forest. Now this is really good when you're in dungeons, because a lot of times your allies might drop below 50% health, and when you use this on them, it's going to give you 20 ultimate, which is going to allow your uptime of Warhorn to be a little bit better. But on top of that, you'll also be able to fire Enchanted Forest off while still maintaining Warhorn. It's a really good combination here. But you can switch this out. I do want to point that out, and it's good. Like if you're playing in Overland and you're by yourself running around, go with the Fighters Guild. Go with a Flawless Dawnbreaker, because this is going to give you a lot of damage and stuff. And in PvP, use Flawless Dawnbreaker. Don't worry about using this in PvP, because for some reason it tends to bug out in PvP. I don't know why, but it does. It still can work, but it's not as effective as it is in PvE. Moving on to the back bar. On the back bar, we do have Endless Hail. This is what's going to help us keep and maintain the damage over time, or the damage enchant we have on our bow, and it's going to give us a little bit of damage over time. So it's a really good thing, and you can do it. Like I said, you can drop it. Oops. You can drop it, and you'll see it proc on my character. I get the weapon damage, and because I get that weapon damage, I can swap bars and maintain it. So as long as this is up, I can swap bars, and I'll keep the weapon damage coming in. Even if it wears off, it'll reapply, and it'll keep that weapon damage up for me really well. And it's just a good thing to have. So keep that bow Endless Hail on the back bar, and keep it up as much as possible. The next ability we have on our bar can be swapped out with a total of 3 abilities, besides the one that's on there, or including the one that's on there. So we have Living Vines. This allows you to apply Minor Lifesteal on an enemy that's hit for an ally. So this is really good. This can be applied to a tank. It can be applied to healers, to your DPS, whoever. It's a good heal, and it does the Minor Lifesteal, which is pretty good. Now this can be swapped out with Ring of Preservation. This is a good protection ability for your group. It does cost stamina, but we have a really high stamina and a good stamina recovery, so we're not going to be sacrificing too much to cast this. It does offer 8% damage reduction, reduced cost in dodge rolling, and minor endurance, increased stamina recovery by 10%. So overall, it's a good skill to have for your group. Another skill you can take instead of that is Nature's Embrace. This is a really good heal, and it heals you and your ally. So you can use this to jump to your ally, heal him, and then heal you. It also grants you 3 ultimate each when each of these effects complete. So when it completes healing your ally and you, it will give you 3 ultimate. So you get 6 in total. So it's a really good trade-off. It does cost magicka, so you have to be careful when using it. This is better used in PvP. Another skill that you can use instead of that is the Undaunted Sanguine Altar, and this will give minor lifesteal to everybody in your group, to any enemies that are in that circle. So, like, if you use this and you cast it on the ground, anyone that's standing within the range of this circle that it applies, okay, it's not showing it, but if you're within range of this, so like this enemy is going to give lifesteal, and as you can see, now I have that lifesteal on there, which is really good. And then on top of that, one of my buffs coming up is also going to heal. The next ability we have on our bar is Expansive Frost Cloak. I get asked why I don't use the one that offers the 8% damage reduction, because that 8% damage reduction only applies to me. The Major Warden, Major Resolve applies to my allies, but that one has a lot shorter range. This one has a 28-meter radius around me. So I can cast this while I'm in my group. I can cast this, and as long as they're within 28 meters of me, they will get the buff. So it's a lot more powerful in that sense, in group effectiveness. So it's a really good one to have, and it lasts for 24 seconds. The next ability we have is our Major Savagery buff, but it's also a heal. So this, when I cast this on myself, any light attack I do will heal a person. Any heavy attack I do will heal a person. So I can do this and just sit here and spam this if I want at ranged and keep people healed while that's going. So it's a really good trade-off heal. And if I'm up close and I heavy attack, I can also heal with this as well. Light attacks and heavy attacks are going to heal. So it doesn't matter where I'm at, I can always heal. And then I can keep Vigor, that, and then keep light attacking, and every once in a while throw that out. Now, Blade Cloak doesn't heal, but it allows me damage reduction, and again, can stay up close to the enemy. So, and with 19k resistances, which I'll get to, is really, really good. Next up, we have Bullnatch. This is going to be our resource return. It helps with having a high recovery, and this just stacks so much return that we won't have stamina issues whatsoever. We also get Major Brutality and Major Sorcery from this. We only need the Major Brutality, which increases our weapon damage by 20%. The next ability on our bar, now this is what I like to use, but you can change it if you want to. I prefer Sturdy Warhorn, because as a stamina healer, we're not using a Resto Staff and Combat Prayer, so we have no way of applying Minor Resolve, Minor Ward to our allies. But with this, we can apply it, and it lasts for 39 seconds. So every time we fire Warhorn, we're going to give Major, or Max Magicka, Max Stamina, and Minor Ward, Minor Resolve for 39 seconds. Almost 40 seconds, guys, of that. So this is really good for group play. So if I use Warhorn, and I have my Frost Cloak up, you'll see that I go to 19k spell and 18k physical resistance. This is really, really good. This is going to allow for greater survivability of my group overall. It's also going to apply that 7k almost resistance to my to all the people in my group, my healers, my DPS, all that. Plus we're going to get the increased stamina and the increased magicka. So, and while that's up, we can still use the tree on the front bar. Now, there is one skill I want to talk about. So with this, there is one skill that you can swap this out for if you want to, and it's going to give your group a little bit more support, and that's Reviving Barrier. As you can see, for me, it's a 41,547 damage shield with a 30k almost heal over 30 seconds. So if I use this barrier instead, and I have all my buffs up, $3,700 weapon damage, and we go to barrier, it is now a 42,000 point shield with a 30k heal, and that is over 30 seconds. And this shield lasts a long time, guys, a really long time at 42,000. And with resistances now applying to it, the Warhorn, along with this shield, along with all the other stuff, like you can keep good resistances on your group and a good shield. So this is a good trade-off for the healing tree. So, just letting you know. So now moving on to the CP. Starting with this, and this is why our CP is set up this way. We have 81 into Ironclad. This reduces damage taken from direct damage attacks by 24%. We do have 2 into Spell Shield and 1 into Medium Armor Focus. I had 3 points left over. I didn't really have a place to put them, and this is going to be best for now. So, moving on over here, we have 34 into Thick Skin. This reduces damage taken from damage over time effects by 14%. This and Ironclad both stack with Hardy and Elemental Defender. So, remember, this gives us 24% reduced damage from direct damage. This gives us 12. So this 12, added to that 24, is a 36% damage reduction. So it's really, really good on direct damage that we get that. And then this with this gives us 14, and this gives us a 26% damage reduction from poison, bleeds, that kind of stuff. It's really good. Moving on, we do have 40 points in the Bastion. This increases the effectiveness of damage shields by 40%. If you didn't want to use the barrier, I would suggest taking this 40 points and putting it into other stuff. But I like to use barrier sometimes, so I would suggest leaving this 40 points here. So you do get that 16% increase in that damage shield. Moving on to the green tree. You're not always going to use the damage shield, but it's good to have. It's really good in PvP. Warlord reduces the cost to break free by 16%. 35 into Sprinter, reducing our sprint cost by 20%. And then we have 76 in the Mooncalf. This is where we're getting that high stam recovery from, with a 14% here as well. So with the 21%, that's 35% increase with Wood Elf and this, and then 20 from medium armor takes us up to 55% stamina increase in recovery. It's ridiculous. We have 43 into Tenacity. This increases our stamina return on our fully charged heavy attacks, helps us with resource management, and we're going to be doing a lot of heavy attacks with this build to get those procs in on those enchants besides Twin Slashes. So, moving on, we have 56 into Tumbling, reducing our dodge roll cost by 20%, and 20 into Shadow Ward, reducing our block cost by 9%. This just helps us if we do need to block an attack. It saves us stamina. Since we are a stam healer, we need that return. We need that high return, and we need the reduced cost in most of our stamina stuff. Moving on, we have 43 into Bless. This increases healing done by 10%. Over here, we have 16 into Physical Weapon Expert, 40 into Mastered Arms. You don't have to do this, but if you want to add a little bit to the character to make him a little bit more damage dealing, this helps. And it helps with, like, dungeon play. Because, like, dungeons, that's the one thing about dungeons, is it's hard to clear dungeons when your healer doesn't do a lot of damage. But if your healer does good damage, then you get extra damage added to the total group damage, and it helps clear things a little faster. Moving on over here, we have 56 in a Mighty. This increases physical poison disease damage by 12%. We do have 66 into Precise Strikes, giving us a 22% increased healing done on our criticals, and it increases our critical damage. So critical healing, critical damage boosted. And then we have 40 into Stamina, or Thaumaturge, to give us increased bleed damage, which is kind of good on Twin Slashes. It makes that heal on the Twin Slashes actually a little better too. 9 into Piercing to increase our physical penetration, and that is it. So that is the Druid setup in CP. There's a lot of ways you could set up the blue CP tree. I would say it's really up to you, but if you want the most effect, it's good to go high into crit heal, healing effect, and yeah, that's pretty much it, those ones. So if you want to boost those up, it's good. And anything that boosts your physical damage, because the more damage your character can do physically, the more healing they're going to do as well. So it's like that stuff applies to your heals, because your heals are stamina based. So, and you do have 3 stamina heals, actually 4 if you include this one, even though this is a magic based skill. Anytime you land a lighter or medium attack or heavy attack, you're going to heal. And it's based off of, I'm not sure. But it is a magic cast ability, so. But it's, I mean, like I said, overall, this is a really fun setup if you're looking for something different than the standard healer. And it does offer all the benefits besides a cleanse and spear shards or orbs. You can put orbs on this build if you want to, and I would suggest if you did take orbs from the Undaunted line, I would suggest going with the it's this one, the energy orb. It's going to be a small heal, but at least you can give resources to your allies, and you can swap it out with Sanguine Altar. So, or whatever you're using there, you can use orbs instead. It does cost magicka, so you have to be careful with it. Try not to spam it too much. So, like I said, small heal, but when you add those small heals to all those other heals you have, those small heals actually add up. So, and that's if you want to use orbs on the build. I personally don't like using orbs on this build because it's just too much, and I prefer, honestly, using the Living Vines. It works out so much better because this you can just cast, and even if it applies to you, you can get that minor lifesteal on the enemy. For some reason it's not working. But as you can see, like, if you have everything going, like your heals, your crit heals on the Soothing Spores can be really high, and it's good to have that going. If I can get my heals to proc a crit. Usually when I proc a crit heal, it's like 19 or 16k, so you've got some really powerful heals on here. And then your vigor hits for quite a bit when it procs, so you do have a 58% critical, which is really good too. So there it is, 16k on the healing spores, and with Chokethorn proccing every so often, it stays active quite a bit, and it will keep healing people. So it's a really, like I said, a lot of heal on this build, lots of really fun playability. So just keep your resources under control, and this build will do wonders for you. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the build, guys. Hope you like it. If you do, hit that like button. If you guys want to see more builds or other videos by me, hit that subscribe button. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy might see you in game. Bye.